few weeks ago now, I built a massive rocket and sent Jebediah Kerman on top of a massive Christmas tree all the way to Eeloo in the far outer solar system. Now, Christmas is certainly over and Jebediah Kerman has been stranded there for over 10 years. So, I think it's time we bring him home. Introducing the Eeloo Voyager. The spacecraft itself consists of solar panels, antennas, crew cabins, and massive liquid hydrogen fuel tanks powering a massive nuclear engine. On top, we also have a lander which will be capable of going down to the surface of Eeloo from orbit and picking up Jebediah Kerman. This whole ship will be put inside a massive fairing to make the rocket somewhat aerodynamic as it flies through the air. Now, it was just the case of making an absolutely massive rocket to get this entire thing into space. After finishing the build, it was just the case of doing lots of test flights, which didn't exactly go too well. If you want to see the whole process and build time-lapse of me building this rocket, just click the link in the description below. And after some minor adjustments later, we're ready to launch. And just about a minute and a half after launch, we can separate those side boosters and continue on our way to space. And after our first stage runs out of fuel, we separate to the second stage, which will take this the rest of the way to orbit. Now that I'm out of the atmosphere and drag and air resistance are no longer a concern, we can open up that fairing in a somewhat unrealistic way, revealing the entire spacecraft. And with that, our spacecraft is now in a stable orbit of Kerbal. All that's left to do now is get over to Eeloo. I first planned a burn that would get me from Kerbal orbit all the way on a trajectory to encounter Eeloo. However, this was a bit harder than I expected, and I guess that makes sense considering Eeloo is on an angle relative to the rest of the Kerbal system, and it is also very far away. But eventually, as you can see, we got a good encounter, and all that's left to do now is burn away from Kerbal. Now, this burn took up a lot of fuel, considering that Eeloo is very far away and the burn itself took 2.5 kilometers a second of delta V. This meant that our second stage actually ran out of fuel on our way. Luckily though, we can quickly switch over to the nuclear engine and drop the empty tanks. Now, while burning to Eeloo, I accidentally got an unintentional bun encounter, but hey, I guess it's nice to see it on the way out. After doing a couple of mid-course correction burns, the Kerbals no longer need to pilot the craft until we arrive at Eeloo, so the Kerbals can do a quick EVA and transfer over to the habitation module. And here we are, finally arriving at Eeloo. All that's left to do now is to do an absolutely massive retrograde burn to slow down into an orbit. And now we are in a stable orbit and have been completely captured by Eeloo's gravity. Bill Kerman, our engineer Kerbal, does a quick EVA to admire the view, while Valentina Kerman, our pilot Kerbal, gets into the lander, ready to descend to Eeloo. Now we can just simply undock the lander and descend to Eeloo. As I descend to Eeloo, I would actually like to make a quick announcement, which is I actually have a Discord server. On this server you can give me video feedback and even video ideas. But more importantly, you'll be able to share your own questionable KSP creations with me and even share your own videos. If you're interested, just click the link in the comments to join. Anyways, back to the video. A bit of a wonky descent later, and we have touched down on the surface of Eeloo. Switching to Jebediah Kerman now, we actually are still quite a few kilometers away from our lander. But luckily, there was some extra fuel left in our Christmas tree. So I had an idea. What if we could fly the Christmas tree over to our lander instead of Jebediah Kerman having to walk 13 kilometers? Which, by the way, would have taken a damn long time. Let's do this. And we have once again touched down on the surface of Eeloo. Now, due to my terrible flying skills, we are still a few kilometers away from the lander, but luckily Jebediah Kerman can use the small amount of fuel in his jetpack to get over there. And now Jebediah Kerman leaves the Christmas tree and makes his way over to the lander. Now, this was a little bit sketchy because I didn't really know if I had enough fuel to do this. But luckily we did, and here we are descending into the mountains. Now we have landed next to the lander, all that's left to do is to get Valentina Kerman out to plant the flag and get Jebediah Kerman inside the lander. After grabbing one quick surface sample, we've got both Kerbals back inside the lander and we're ready to leave Eeloo behind and ascend back to the mothership. Now, as I have said many times before, this wouldn't be a KSP2 video without some kind of bug. And as you can see here, my trajectory line for my orbit literally just isn't showing up, which is kind of a problem when you want to dock two things together in space orbiting a celestial body. But I'm too lazy to restart the game, so let's try docking anyway. As you can see here though, we did eventually manage to dock the two vessels together. Now all that's left to do is transfer the Kerbals from the lander into the command pod, separate the lander as it is now just dead weight, and finally plot a course back to Kerbal. Let's get these Kerbals home. And with that, we are now successfully back in orbit of Kerbal. All that's left to do now is do a retrograde burn, enter the atmosphere, deploy the parachutes, and touch down. And with that, Jebediah Kerman is now safely back on Kerbal, and the mission is complete. Now this video did take about a week to complete, so if you did enjoy this video, consider subscribing or just liking the video if you want to see more content like this. But otherwise, I'll see you all next time.